Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, and welcome to Big 12 Insiders. This is our spotlight game, or at least one of them. We've got a couple this week. One of our spotlight games of the week, Kansas State travels to Colorado. Today we've got Ryan Gilbert here to discuss Kansas State coming off their bye week, what they did, and how they can go win this game at Colorado. But before we dive into that, first things first, remember to like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. So we appreciate everybody, all the support that you have given to the channel so far. Continue to leave those comments. So I appreciate it. But let's get into this, Ryan. First things first, how are you doing, my man?
Big B, I'm good. I know the bye week was probably great for Kansas State and Colorado both to kind of refresh, relax a little bit. But for me, I loved it. I was very lazy, didn't get a whole lot done, but you know, it's been nice to kind of just unwind for a little bit, but I'm excited to get back to it.
Absolutely. Speaking of the bye week, how did Kansas State treat their bye week? Everybody, when you go through a bye week is trying to get a little bit healthier. So obviously that, but did they go over a lot of Colorado? Did they go over other teams? Did they spend a lot of fundamentals? How did Kansas State treat theirs?
Yeah, we talked with Kleiman and then select players on Monday in those press conferences, and they said, you know, they kind of brushed over Colorado a little bit in that bye week, but I think more of that preparation is going to start here kind of today, tomorrow, even, you know, Monday. Like, I think it's starting to ramp up more, but I think they have a good, nice foundational understanding of guys like Shadir Sanders and stuff like that. But I know that some of the players, they just took it easy. And, you know, if you're kind of within the Kansas City area or you're nearby Manhattan, a lot of guys kind of went and saw their siblings play for the weekend or what have you. And so they seemed refreshed, relaxed, and ready to go. And, you know, Big B, this is, if Kansas State doesn't have a bye week, Uso Seumalo, certainly one of the best defensive tackles on the team, is going to have to miss a game. It's sounding like he's maybe going to be good to go against Colorado. So that bye week came at a great time for him. But obviously for everybody, and this is true for both sides, of course, but everybody's kind of well rested now.
Yeah, I just remember back in the day, I mean, bye weeks. And now, granted, bye weeks under Bill Snyder were a little different than bye weeks over from a lot of people. But at the same time, it was just good. Not necessarily the physical break was great because you weren't practicing every day, but the mental aspect of it, of just the constant grind, comes at a good time, it seems, for both teams. Speaking of bye weeks, though, Coach Kleiman hasn't been great, you know, the last few seasons coming out of a bye. Is there anything specific that maybe Kansas State is going to try to do or is doing in preparation for, you know, some of the losses after a bye, that doesn't happen again?
What I always go back to about this, Big B, is Kansas State's games after the bye week have been on the road the last couple of seasons, and they've lost those. Chris Kleiman's road struggles have been very evident. I don't know if there's a big enough sample size with the bye week alone to just say that it's that. I think K-State struggles on the road more than anything, and we saw that against Tulane to start the season. We saw that against BYU as well in that blowout loss. But you know, I don't know if they're making any wholesale changes. I think Kleiman said he might tweak some things. He didn't get into specifics about, you know, maybe what they'll do during the day because it's going to be a long – they're going to have a lot of time to kill. I'm sure those guys will get the cards out, play some Uno or something. But, I mean, they've got obviously a long time out there in Colorado before that game kicks off. So I don't think Chris Kleiman – he certainly acknowledges it, but I don't think he's into making any big changes. And we'll see if there's another – kind of slugfest out of the bye here again. I think you have to start saying there might be some truth to it. But again, this is another road game where Kleiman over the last couple of years has not been overly successful.
Yeah, and let's stay right there with Kansas State struggles on the road this season. Look, a lot of people, I mean, we saw the game against Tulane. That could have went either way. Kansas State ended up making a play at the end to secure a victory. A little bit controversial, some might say, but they were able to beat Tulane on the road. And then the next game, it didn't look well. They started fine, but then a little adversity hit, and they had no idea how to react and didn't, and BYU ended up blowing them out. What, if anything, is Kansas State trying to change with that? Is it maybe trying to get off a faster start? what kind of lessons are they learning so that, look, I'm not saying the Colorado crowd is going to be the same as a Provo crowd, because it's not, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be crazy. It's going to be ruckus. Like you mentioned, Colorado fans are going to have all day to get ready for the game too. It's going to be at night. What is Kansas State trying to do or looking to do to quell some of those issues that they've had on the road?
Well, the biggest thing against Oklahoma State at home on last Saturday was Kansas State did struggle. Avery Johnson threw a pretty bad interception. The Cowboys had a flea flicker with Alan Bowman for a touchdown that, K-State had a letdown. But Big B, what happened was Kansas State calmed down. They hit kind of the reset button, and they didn't panic. They got things under control and obviously had a really impressive win over Oklahoma State. So the two kind of bad plays that happened kind of back to back in Manhattan last weekend did not snowball. In Provo, the bad plays did, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I think that playing on the road versus at home, Big B certainly has something to do with that, right? I mean, if you are on the road, it's much easier to just lose your not lose your confidence, but lose your composure, right? At home, everyone's behind you. It's much easier to just move on from a play like that. And so that's probably the biggest thing for this team to focus on, put an emphasis on, is if there's going to be a bad play, I'd be surprised if Avery Johnson or the whole team doesn't have a turnover. Somebody's going to have a fumble. Somebody's, Avery's going to throw an interception. Those plays are going to happen. Colorado's going to hit a big play. Deion Sanders is going to try to pull something out to get that crowd involved, right? There's going to be plays that go against this team. The biggest key is how they respond from those. Against Oklahoma State, perfect responses, right? Arizona at home gave up an opening drive touchdown to the Wildcats of Arizona. And Kansas State pitched a shutout for the rest of the game on defense, right? So at home, they've been great at responding from that adversity. On the road, it's been pretty much the exact opposite. So that's going to be one of the biggest keys with what you're asking, Big B. That's something that has to change on the road.
All right, let's talk about Colorado for a quick second. Lot of talent at the skill position, quarterback. In my opinion, Travis Hunter is the best football player in college football. I'm not sure that that's really up for debate. I know that's a trendy thing that everybody says, oh, it's not up for debate. But if you pay attention to college football and what he's doing, I get it. Ashton Genty is outstanding at Boise. But for what Travis Hunter is actually doing on both sides of the football, I'm just not sure that you could say that somebody's a better football player. And if you're being honest. Having said that, Colorado is doing things a little bit differently than last year. It seems like the momentum is a little different, Ryan, this year than last year, because last year you could see almost the avalanche coming, because while they won a few games early, it was like, well, wait a minute. When they start playing some people that actually have a pulse that can run the ball and stop the run, Colorado's going to be in trouble. And they were. Well, this year, they've actually done it. Now, I'm not saying they've played world beaters, because they haven't. But you still have to stop the teams that you are playing against. You still have to run the ball against the teams that you're playing against. And they've been able to do that. It just seems like that momentum and stuff is a little bit different this year than it was last year.
Yeah, they only have one loss, so that speaks for itself. You can say what you want about the non-conference, but UCF, Big B, maybe the Knights aren't as good as we maybe thought, but still certainly a quality team, a really good rushing attack that Colorado was able to just shut down. And so this is a big game. I said this on our K-State Insider show on Monday evening, that I believe this is a bigger game for Colorado really than it is for Kansas State. This is kind of the make or break game for the Buffaloes. Are they legit, or are they not, right? And if they win this game, it's going to be very hard to deny that what Deion Sanders is doing is impressive. Whereas if they lose, you kind of have that whole, they are who we thought they were. As for Kansas State, though, it just doesn't. I mean, Kansas State's kind of had the Big 12, realistic Big 12 championship aspirations since the start of the season, right? That's not a hot take at all. Everybody's kind of put K-State up in the top. Vegas, has had K-State as the front runner in the conference. And so this game, obviously, to win the Big 12 or to keep that goal alive, you have to win it. But, Big B, that's true for pretty much every game moving forward after losing your conference opener to BYU. You have to win all these games. And so you've got West Virginia coming up on the road again, next week. Sure, like there's maybe some spots where it might be tricky for this team, but Kansas State's expectation in that own locker room is to win every game. So I don't think it means as much as it does to Kansas State, really, as it does for Colorado. This is the game that can swing the pendulum one way or the other for the outlook of Colorado's entire season.
See, and I kind of look at it a little bit differently, Gills, is because I think for Kansas State, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I just look at it a little differently, is that I look at it as, you're right, Kansas State, their expectation is Big 12 title or bust. And it should be that expectation. They're that program. But you got to go win this football game. And so I think there's a lot of pressure to continue to win. It's not just this week, it's every single week. Now, I think you might be also right. So two things can be true. For Colorado, and you kind of mentioned this is a legitimacy game. This is, hey, everything that we've said about our program, everything that we've done about our program, we got to win this football game to legitimize what we're doing. Now, obviously, if they lose and then they go on and win the rest of the games of their season, they're going to have some other opportunities to legitimize it. But this is the real first one, that they have to legitimize their program against a ranked team that everybody believes is good. This won't be one of those games where if Colorado wins, everybody's going to say, oh, well, Kansas State's not any good. No, you can't do that this time. Kansas State is a good football team. So I think it's not a legacy game, but it legitimizes Colorado if they can win this game. But for Kansas State, again, I think there's pressure because it's like you mentioned, Big 12 title is their aspiration. Well, that means you got to win them all because you've already lost one. So I think there's equally amount of pressure in this football game. Having said all that, what are some of the ways that Kansas State can go and win?
Well, I know that it's been talked about with you and Cole Carmody and Monty. Like if this was a 7-on-7, right? Colorado would whip Kansas State, but it's not, right? This is a game that Kansas State can make its mark in the trenches. The offensive line hasn't been perfect this season, but DJ Giddens is not running on his own, right? He's getting open running lanes. Give credit where it's due. So that's where Kansas State can kind of have the edge here against Colorado, keeping a lid on things on defense, right? We mentioned how things can snowball, right? In some of K-State's, or I guess the long loss to BYU and some of the struggles this year. Well, if K-State can keep teams out of the end zone, limit the big plays, don't let them hit home runs, K-State's defense is really, really, really good. That's been the glaring flaw of Joe Klanderman's group, though, has been countless big plays for opposing offenses. So obviously, like I mentioned, I'm sure Deion is going to want to do that in a primetime game like this. And I'm sure that Travis Hunter wants to catch a big ball. I'm sure that, Shadir wants to throw that big ball. So K-State's got to be ready for that. Big B, this very well. K-State's in man is pretty good on defense. In zone, it's been the exact opposite. So, those miscommunications, the mishaps, you got to trust your eyes. Those mistakes just can't happen in a game like this. And so, but back to what I was saying, though, man, winning it in the trenches is going to be key for this Kansas State team. I think there's no debating that Colorado's probably more of a top-heavy team with the playmakers that it has, and that's not a slide on Avery Johnson because his 4-star rating has kind of lived up, in my opinion. It's lived up to its expectations. It has, but where are his wideouts? They've just been non-existent this year. DJ Giddens has been great, sure, but to hit that home run play, I think Colorado's got more weapons in its arsenal. So K-State's going to have to make up for that. And with just the little plays, don't have, obviously I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a couple plays that go against you, but try to steal that back with a punt return that goes for 20, 30 yards. Try to find those little ways to win the game, which is kind of what a program like Kansas State has always traditionally, Big B, I'm sure you'd agree, right? It's kind of hung its hat on, is by winning it, by playing smart, fundamental football.
Right. Yeah, that's Kansas State. I think if they're going to win this football game, they got to win it in the trenches. They got to run the football. And look, we can say that. And again, I'm not saying that Colorado has stopped a ton of teams, but if you go back and look at their defense, basically from the second half of that Nebraska game till now, they've been playing some pretty good defense and stopped everybody pretty much from running the football the way that they want to. So it might be something that's easier said than done. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I'm going. Can't wait to get out there. My wife kind of put the screws to me. She said, we are going to this game. I said, you know what? let's get out there and let's go watch it. So I look forward to not only seeing you, just seeing the crowd. I think the atmosphere, Ryan, is going to be crazy for this game. You know, you see it on TV with everything that comes with what Colorado is right now, and you can kind of get a feel for it, but I'm looking forward to actually being there and just being a part of that atmosphere. I think it's going to be a great time. Having said all of that, who wins the game on Saturday?
Well, with the atmosphere, man, real quick, I'm excited because like BYU was great. There's nothing bad to say about that crowd. They were awesome, but that's kind of part of like not the problem, but like there was nothing bad to say about them. Like Avery Johnson was saying after that game that they were like encouraging him after loss.
Right.
Like, let's get back to some real college football here. So I'm excited for the atmosphere of the crowd. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be raucous. You know, I know Colorado fans are ready, and I'm sure K-State will have a nice presence in Boulder as well. I have a hard time confidently picking Kansas State, favored by, I think, 4 points right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time picking Kansas State for one simple reason, and that is because of the road struggles. That I just can't get past that. Kansas State for the last couple of seasons has not been a good road team. Colorado, you know, in my opinion, Big B, I'm not going to disagree with what you said about this game meaning a lot for Kansas State. I just think at the end of the day, man, this is the game. I mean, this is kind of the biggest game of the year for Colorado. And obviously you lose it, you can still make up some ground later on in the year. But I think if Colorado loses this game, I don't know if Colorado will win many big time games for the rest of the year. If they lose, they're probably they're not that good of a team. If they win it, they're going to be having a chance to win a remainder of its, pretty much all of its games. Right. So it's a huge game for Colorado. I simply, Big B, I don't have enough confidence in K-State on the road right now. I need to see it before I can, say it with my chest, like that K-State's going to win on the road. I need to see, if Tulane was a better team, and that's with all due respect to the team down there in New Orleans. If Tulane was a better team, K-State doesn't win that game. Like,
right.
Without a doubt, straight up, Darian Mensah was the better quarterback in that game. K-State doesn't win it if it's a Power 5 team. So K-State has not played well on the road. That's not a hot take. That's not a crazy take at all. I need to see something change before I can believe it. So I think Colorado's got the upper hand here. I really do.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's Colorado. The atmosphere is going to be there, kind of what you mentioned. There's some games down the road that they have an opportunity, but and clearly context matters. I mean, if they lose, and they play well, but Kansas State ekes out a close game, there's still some opportunities there. But I just think for both teams, like I said, K-State's got to win every game to be able to get to, because I think if K-State loses 2 games, I'm not sure that they can still get to Arlington. The Big 12's crazy, so clearly there's a window of opportunity there. But if they're going to have the kind of season that they want to have, and they're the kind of team that they believe they are, they can't lose this football game. And for Colorado, the reason that I love this game so much is because, again, I think it legitimizes them if they go win this game, because people won't be able to say, even though you'll have a few people out there that still will, well, Kansas State's not very good. No. You can't say that if they win this game. You won't be able to say that. Kansas State is a good football team. So if Colorado wins it, it will legitimize what they've got going on this season. So we appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you for taking the time today. We will be right back. On the other side of this, we will have Adam Munsterteiger from Colorado discussing Colorado and K-State and what they need to do to be able to win this game.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Again, this is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. We've got Adam Munsterteiger here, who covers the Colorado Buffaloes for 24/7 Sports. Adam, how are you doing today, my man?
Good. Just like you guys out at Kansas State, we got the bye week. It's always nice for the program to kind of heal up and do their thing and kind of have a break as a football program, but it's also great for us as well. I got a chance to actually tune into some college football on Saturday. Usually you're fighting the crowds, getting there early to the stadium and working late. And so I feel refreshed coming out of that bye week for sure.
Yeah, bye weeks are good for everybody involved, man. Just players, coaches, media, fans. It's just every now and then it's good to just have a reset and not be so heavily invested, I guess you should say. So it was good to have that bye week for everybody. Speaking of the bye week, how did they spend their bye week? Was it did they take time off? Did they game plan Kansas State, work a lot of fundamentals? How did they work their bye week?
Yeah, they took some time off. They practiced early last week, and that's a time, obviously, to get some development stuff that you can't get done during a normal game week. And then towards the end of the week, they let everybody, even coaches, got a break. And there was their defensive coordinator, Robert Livingston, almost got choked up just talking about, hey, I'm around this team more than I am my own family. To be able to spend a little time with them is going to be awesome. So they had that. They reconvened on Monday, and now we're kind of back into a normal game week mode. So it was a little bit of developmental work, some time away, and jumping right back into it.
Gotcha. So Adam, let me just jump in here and ask you this. Look, Colorado, 4-1, again, coming off of a bye week. I believe that this game is a huge game as far as the legitimacy factor, because what a lot of people look, there's going to be tons of haters of Colorado. Just there is. We all know that. Everybody understands that. But the teams that they have beaten, we thought that UCF was going to be good. It turns out that they're not as good as advertised. Nobody is going to be able to say if they beat Kansas State that Kansas State's not a good team, or nobody's going to be, no reasonable person anyway, is going to be able to say that. How big of a game is this for Colorado to win, and even to play well? Maybe they don't win and it's a close game, but I think they got to win if they do, for the legitimacy of what they've done so far this season.
Yeah, I think for both teams, it's kind of a statement game, whoever wins on Saturday. And, even on Kansas State side, if they come in, even if it's just by a point, I know they're favored by a little bit more than that, but I think we can say that Colorado's a good football team. Are they in that category of being a Big 12 conference contender? I think it's premature. And again, you go out Saturday and win that game, then all of a sudden you are. But even if Kansas State comes in and beats them, that's still a good win for the Wildcats when you look at this conference. Yeah. I think Colorado's going to be in the top half of this conference, and where they fall in the top half of the conference, it just kind of depends on health, really, with Shedeur and Travis Hunter. But yeah, no, it would be a statement game for Colorado. It would, I think, be the biggest game. At least you go back to the first game of the Coach Prime era, and TCU was coming off being runners up for the national championship. Right. You win on the road, and people lost their minds. And so that part of it might be a little bit different if you beat Kansas State, when there's a little bit more of an expectation that you're supposed to be, competitive in these games. But, this is year 2. So this is now the team that can contend. Whereas last year, even when they were winning those early games, those of us covering the team were going, well, yeah, there's some holes, though. And other teams started to show that. I think this year's team has very few holes. And if you can beat a Kansas State, then all of a sudden you really have placed yourself, in the discussion for the conference championship.
Right. And to that point, what you're talking about, as far as last year versus this year, it just feels different, Adam. Just looking at the Colorado's team, it just feels like a totally different type of atmosphere. It feels like they have gotten better from last year to this year. They're doing things that, at the beginning of the year, people still question, could they stop the run? Were they going to be able to run the football? Well, number one, basically from the second half of that Nebraska game till today, they haven't allowed teams to run the football on them. You could say 177 yards by UCF. Well, they also caused 4 turnovers, and that's and they whipped UCF. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, they blew them out. So some of those rushing yards don't mean anything. So they've played really good defense there, and they've also been running the football. They've attempted to run the football, where at times last year they couldn't even attempt to run the ball because the offensive line wasn't opening up anything for them to be able to do that. They're being able to do that some. Look, they're not going to run for 300 yards, but they're not trying to do that. They're just trying to keep you honest, and they're able to do that. So to me, Adam, it just feels like a totally different vibe around that program right now.
Yeah, both coordinators have meshed so much better on this staff, and certainly the increased talent on both sides of the ball with a couple extra transfer portal cycles to bring in talent has helped in this regard. But Pat Shurmur offensively, he mixed it up in their last game at UCF, and they were majority 11 personnel. And UCF's defense coordinator was saying that threw us off. We weren't expecting that. Now right. Colorado is going to be primarily 4 wide, 10 personnel type offense, but we've seen more flexibility within this offense. You see a little bit more of the power run game now that you just was not in this offense, especially last year and then even early on this season. Defensively, Robert Livingston basically came in with no playbook at all and kind of designed everything to the players. And I've heard a lot of defensive coordinators say, we're going to tailor our defense to the player's strength. And then you talk to these players midseason and they're going, my head's swimming. I don't know what I'm doing out there. Robert Livingston actually came in, so I'm going to tailor the defense to these players, and he actually did it. And so what you get as a result is ultimate buy-in, which when you're building a team through the portal, you got to have that buy-in. You can't have guys that are all out for themselves. And so it's been impressive to see both coordinators do a much better job than what we saw out of both the coordinators last year.
Right. A lot of people don't like maybe some of the brashness that some of the Colorado players have or Coach Prime does. Personally, I think it's great. I don't think anything's wrong with it at all. They do have 2 of the best players in the country. I don't think, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, Adam, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Travis Hunter's the best player in college football. What he does on both sides of the ball, I don't think there's any question. And I've also said that Shedeur Sanders is the best college quarterback out there right now. There's going to be some people that push back on that, and that's fine. But I watch football. I've watched it for a long time. His football IQ seems to be really, really high. He's a thrower of the football. Maybe holds on to it sometimes, but you're going to get some of that when maybe the offensive line isn't as good or hasn't been as good. You're going to maybe develop some of those habits. But having 2 of those guys, and you could say 2 of the top 10 players in college football, has to help, especially when they're leaders of that football team.
You just have to go back to that Baylor game. Colorado was dead in the water. I mean, that right. the win probability, I don't even know if it was at 0.1% on ESPN at that point, because that football game was over. And you had just an unbelievable throw from Shedeur Sanders, really on back-to-back plays. People forget before LeJohntay Wester caught the touchdown that tied things up in regulation. Will Shepard almost had a touchdown down there as well. And so, and then Travis Hunter, who got a little bit of criticism early in the season. There was a play in the Nebraska game where it looked like maybe he could make a play on a Huskers player that was close to the end zone. And he showed that he's not afraid to get his hands dirty in there and force that game-winning fumble. And so those are the moments you get from those 2 guys that, at times they kind of put this team on their back. But over the course of a 12-game regular season, you're going to have help. And generally they have, outside of that Nebraska game, which was a really rough half of football for Colorado. There was high expectations going into that game from the Buff standpoint, and they laid an egg there. But since that point, even in the second half of that game, you've definitely seen a program that's trending in the right direction. But it's still generally pretty untested at this point. Like you said, UCF is not as good as maybe we thought going into conference play, and Colorado State's not very good. So that's why Saturday's game is going to be a litmus test for Colorado, and would also be a statement game for Kansas State.
Yeah, it will definitely. I'm excited for this football game. Kansas State kind of brings a physicality that's going to be similar to what Nebraska brings. They're going to get after you on both sides of the ball. For Colorado to win this football game, what are they going to have to do?
They got to stop the run, and specifically Avery Johnson. defending dual threat quarterbacks, I would say, has been the biggest issue we've seen with Colorado's defense through 5 games so far. And, even in that Baylor game, they gave up a lot of yards to a pro-style quarterback. So that's been an issue for them. They were better against Jefferson, against UCF. But even in that game, he got out and made a few big plays with his legs. So this is a game where Avery Johnson could be really an X factor with his legs, and certainly Giddens and Dylan Edwards as well. You got to focus in on Kansas State's ground game. I think if Kansas State does what they want to do on the ground, it's going to be tough for the Buffaloes to win this football game. So that's kind of the key for them.
Gotcha. Well, Adam, again, I hate to do it to you, and I've been doing it to everybody, man. Who wins this game on Saturday?
I haven't quite made a final prediction yet.
I gotcha.
I would really be surprised if this is not a nail biter down the stretch.
Oh, yeah.
I really do think this is going to be one of those Big 12 Saturdays that we anticipated coming into this season where, Colorado with the home field advantage and Kansas State being kind of a tough matchup for a Colorado team, especially with what the Wildcats are going to do with their front seven to try to, get after Shedeur Sanders. And so this is going to be a big test for Colorado's offensive line. It's been kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back with that group this year. So we'll see how they handle this tough matchup. But I think it's less than a touchdown that decides this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really close. So luckily, my wife lets me go to a game every year, and she decided that this was going to be the game that I get to go to. So I will be there. Hopefully I will run into you. So I appreciate that. And again, Adam, thank you again, man, for giving us your time today. We really do appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. Thank you.
All right. And thank you, everybody. Again, remember, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave those comments and continue to hit the notification bell. We appreciate you guys. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.